Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov Chess channel and welcome to another great game of the Norway Chess tournament in 2023. We're following now another great game from the round 6. We have here the Norwegian derby between Aryan, Tari and Magnus Carlsen. So the first game they played, the classical time format chess game, ended with a draw, which meant that they had to play the so-called Armageddon game, in which Aryan Tari had 10 minutes on the clock, Magnus Carlsen had 7 minutes on the clock, but of course Aryan Tari has to win the game. If the game ends with a draw, then black is winning the game. So these are the rules. It's a little bit specific. It's not the usual tournament that we see, but I think it's a dynamic format. We see many winning games, many attacking games, and although you made maybe a draw in the classical time format game, still you have opportunities to make something in this beautiful chess event. So what to say about Magnus Carlsen's performance so far? I don't think that he can be satisfied, although Magnus Carlsen seems relaxed in this chess event, but still I would say that he's probably not satisfied with the outcome so far. We know that Magnus took the break a little bit from chess, that he didn't play so many games in the last couple of months, but still this is really an underperformance for the former world champion, because he didn't win any classical time format chess game so far, although we have to say it and praise also Magnus Carlsen a little bit, because he won every Armageddon game that he played, which is also a huge respectful result. But still, of course, Magnus lost also many rating points in classical time format chess, so in my opinion Magnus has now to make something in the next couple of rounds. So let's see now this beautiful Armageddon game. Aryan Tari with the black pieces, as we said, 10 minutes on the clock, Magnus Carlsen with the black pieces, 7 minutes on the clock, but Aryan Tari needs to win the game. So Aryan Tari opened with the move e4. Magnus' response was e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to c4. We have the Italian game, and now we have the two knights defense with the move knight to f6, d3, classical variation. We have now bishop to e7, kingside Carlsen. So really a very popular line now in the Italian opening. We have knight to c3, we have d6, so we have a certain symmetry of the pawn structure here in the center of the board. But of course, white is always slightly better. White has a slightly better advantage because of the better bishop's activity. Look at this, both bishops are very powerful. On the other hand, only maybe black's light square bishop has a decent activity. This bishop is a little bit paralyzed by its own pawn structure. So we have here a3, bishop to g4, h3, bishop takes f3, queen to f3. A risky choice here by Magnus Carlsen to give up the bishop here in an early stage of the game, especially when we said in the beginning that this bishop is not so good. But Magnus is probably very familiar with this line, because when I watch now this particular line in the database, I see also many winning games here with the black pieces. Only one winning game I see with the white pieces, many draws. So it's probably somewhere in Magnus Carlsen's home preparation, this beautiful exchange variation of an f3, because Magnus gained now also on tempo against the queen. The queen draws back, and now Magnus controls the further light squares here with the move c6, and also the controlling the b5 square. So when you give up the light square bishop like you did now, like Magnus Carlsen, then you want to of course control the squares that the bishop used to cover. So from this point on, of course, Magnus has now to be careful on light squares in the position. So bishop to a2. Now Aryan Tari drops back with the bishop. It's a thematic idea, because the bishop drops back but stays on this diagonal and cannot be attacked anymore further by any activities of black's minor pieces. So far this bishop is really the best piece on the board. So we have knight to e6. Magnus wants to reroute one of these knights on f4. He wants to cement the position around the square. We have knight to e2. Aryan Tari is controlling the square. Magnus attacks now immediately the center with the move d5. That's also the beauty about this preparation with the move c6. And now Aryan Tari plays knight to g3. He wants also to occupy now the weak square in black's position, the weak f5 square. Magnus plays queen to c7, c3, a rook to d8, placing the rook where already the queen is. If the d file gets cleared, then the queen could be endangered. So queen to f3, Aryan Tari gets out of this mess, and now rook from f3, e8. Magnus includes now the last piece that hadn't participated so far in the game. Nice thematic move also here by Magnus. We have bishop to e3, and now comes one of the critical moments of the game, not maybe so important, but with a certain idea that I think has to be more discussed here. When you play against the bishop pair, it's sometimes really good to trade off at least one of these bishops off the board. Then I think you had to have a solid game, because one bishop is not the same when you have the bishop pair. The bishop pair is crossing all over the board. That's why Magnus played an interesting move, bishop to c5, although d4 maybe was even slightly better pushing this position to the limits now. I think with this move, Magnus could have really here a good game. Probably he wanted to go into this positional line, simply getting rid of this bishop, and Aryan Tari is okay, saying I take then this beautiful f5 square. Magnus kicks away now this knight from f5 with the move g6, but of course now comes also this idea. We have queen to g3. You cannot pick up so far the knight because of the queen's activity on the g file. So Magnus counterplays. He wants now to kick away the queen from this activity on the g file. We have knight to h6 by Aryan Tari. We have king to g7, and now queen to g4. And this was now even the first mistake here by Aryan Tari, which almost costed him the whole game. The queen is really endangered here. Maybe you think this is quite an active move here by white, but actually it's quite a risky move. Look at this. A better choice was to maybe even force a draw, but of course you cannot play a draw in an Armageddon game. Knight to f5 and then maybe queen to h4. So then in one moment the knight has to drop back. This would be, I think, a beautiful position also for white. But after move queen to g4, Magnus had the immediate opportunity to play this move. Knight from h to f4, and now, for instance, if black get challenged with the move knight to f5, then we can step back. The knight drops back now to g3, and now comes the stunning move f5. And this move probably Magnus Carlsen missed. Of course, this is a fast time format, but this move would be very interesting because you cannot even take. Look at this: e takes f5, g takes f5. Whatever you do, knight to f5, rook to g8 is coming. You're vulnerable here around the square g2. If you, for instance, take out with the queen on f5, then rook to f8. Again, you drop back. Again, the same scenario happens. You drop back to d1. Now we play bishop to e3, f6, e3. Now the knight is hanging, and also the g2 pawn is hanging. So it's a position that you can resign. So Magnus had here really the opportunity with this move knight to f4 to cement here the position really around the square, but he played now the risky move bishop to e3 after knight to f5 here by Aryan Tari. The king drops back, and now we have f takes e3, and from this point on here white has equalized the game. Magnus has his chances, but didn't see this tactical sequence, and now you see both players have decent activities. Magnus has also some chances here around the square f4, but it's a long run, of course. White has also some beautiful opportunities with his beautiful light square bishop. So now Magnus plays g takes f5, which gives here Aryan Tari an advantage. Even here Magnus made a really big mistake with this move, because he should have simply kept the position like this. Maybe play something like rook to f8, maybe play also with the queen somewhere. You don't touch anything here, but he played the move risk g takes f5, and now what Aryan Tari should have played is queen to h5, and from this point on I think white would be taking over, because you can play maybe f4, but look at this. This rook is coming into the game. Maybe you can trade off more pieces, but I would not really love to play anymore this game from black's perspective, especially because of the activity here by the bishop and the queen. But unfortunately for Aryan Tari, after move g takes f5, Aryan Tari didn't pick up the knight. He played a risky choice, e takes f5, and this is not working anymore, because Magnus is okay, saying you had your chance to take out the knight, but now you take my knight under my circumstances, not under your circumstances, because now Magnus plays knight to f4, and now you have to give up another pawn just in order to get your piece back. After e takes f4, now knight to f4 is coming, and now the knight is this beautiful octopus outposted knight on its active square on f4. It's supported by the pawn on e5, and suddenly again the g file is open, and from this point on it's a one-way ticket in black's favor. So Aryan Tari had some chances in the beginning. We have to say it. Magnus had his chances, but this is this fast time format chess. Everyone makes mistakes, everyone makes inaccuracies. So very stunning game so far. So after move knight to f4, queen to h4, we have a rook to g8 as promised, the attack on the g file, queen to f6, the check, rook to g7, covering everything, but also staying here with the rook on the g file. So we have d4 by Aryan Tari, knight to h3 by Magnus Carlsen. There are also some opportunities maybe to play rook to e8. The engine, for instance, doesn't like this move, but still, even with this move, knight to h3, although it's maybe evaluated by the engine as an inaccuracy, still this is the +5 position in black's favor. So I really hate when the engine evaluates this as an inaccuracy, although black is still the decisive advantage. Black is still a winning game. So maybe this should be somehow calculated differently by top engines. They should not really calculate this as an inaccuracy when you still have a winning position. But okay, the engine says it's a tiny little inaccuracy. The engine, for instance, as we said, likes more the move rook to e8, but now after move knight to h3, what are you going to do? The king has to step back here. Now knight to g5 was played by Magnus with opportunities to again reroute the knight on beautiful score, so there's still opportunities for this knight. So as I said, it's simply a bad game here for Aryan Tari. Now Aryan makes even another mistake, rook to e1. The only way maybe to survive this game is to trade off the queens, queen to e5, queen to e5, d takes e5, but still this pawn is weak, you are vulnerable here. Also the rook will come into the game, so it's again, I think, a messed up game for black. So after move rook from a to e1, now Magnus plays the beautiful rook to d6, and from this point on, after queen to e5, it's actually even a forced checkmate sequence here in black's favor. Of course, we have first rook to h6, whatever you do, king to g1, now comes this idea, knight to h3 again, you have to play king to h1. We have now a new discovered check, beautiful move here by Magnus, and after move king to g1 and queen to e5, and actually in this position Aryan Tari resigns. So what's the point? Of course, if you pick up the queen like you want to, then of course you get checkmated on g2. You can just prolong the game by playing stupid moves, I don't know, bishop to d5 or something, but this is of course not something that you want to do. Black is up the whole, queen has now activities, but you in one particular moment I think you will lose the game simply around the square g2. So great tactical game in the end. You see, it's risky, these lines that they play. Magnus also was hanging on in one particular moment of the game, but I think his opening choice was really good to give up the bishops for knight, going into this more positional line, then c6 d5, breaking in center. We saw that Magnus created madness in the center of the board, won the game, it seems seemingly in an easy way, but Aryan Tari, as we saw, also had his chances. So I hope that Aryan Tari also makes a couple more points in the super event. He seems like a cool guy, and I also watched a couple of streams by him and also Magnus Carlsen combined. So probably they're Norwegian friends, of course, but when it comes to chess, they're enemies for a little bit. And you see Magnus Carlsen took his chances in the Armageddon game. He has now 100% in Armageddon games so far. These Armageddon games are giving Magnus Carlsen at least a theoretical possibility that he could maybe even win the tournament. But of course, look at this. Fabiano Caruana is, I think, the top favorite. He won too many games, I think, so far in this event. Hikaru is playing great, so in my opinion, this will not be a winning tournament for Magnus Carlsen. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. Interesting ideas of the Italian opening. If you want to see more about this beautiful chess event, check out our coverage so far. Here are some games that we have analyzed before, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you with some more videos, and what to say, chess is the best, of course.